By the end of this round number 12, we will find out who is in today's top 8. As it looks like Wesley on the mono red storm deck is going to be on the play, just starting off with a fetch. We're going to crack it end of turn, and we're going to see what I'm going to say had one of the biggest impacts in Modern or any format that's got fetch lands is these surveil lands, Dean.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, surveillance just allow these decks to have just that extra card. It doesn't seem like it's a lot at first, but especially with the Storm deck as well, specifically where you kind of want cards in your graveyard for Past in Flames anyways. So even if you say graveyard a spell, you may have access to that spell later on. And specifically, the Storm deck also needs to have a very, like a very precise number of lands and spells, and being able to bin extra lands, as we see Wesley do here, is pretty big. The other thing that I wanted to mention about this matchup is the presence of Narset in Steven's deck list. There are 3 copies of Narset in the main deck. Now, you would normally think that Wesley is like Storm decks. You typically want a cantrip with stuff like Opt and sometimes way back in the day Serum Visions. But these Storm decks, their cantrips are actually not real cantrips in terms of drawing cards. There's stuff like Reckless Impulse and Ren's Resolve, which exile 2 cards. They don't actually draw cards. So, the good news is for Wesley is that his quote unquote cantrips do still work in the face of a Narset.
Yeah, I've played a lot of Bowmasters against this deck, and unfortunately, they do not draw the cards. So when you get a lot of damage to the face, but these early turns are going to be set up turns where Steven's going to be trying to slow the brakes over on Wesley's side, stopped him sculpturing that hand too much, and it looks like we're going to generate a treasure token, just play our land drop, and kind of set up for maybe a turn 4. We're going to try and combo off here under some sort of counter magic from Steven.
Ooh. Well, Steven may have a lot of counter magic in his hand, but what he doesn't have is lands. There is no third land in hand for Steven, so he's in kind of a bit of a bind here where you could Prismatic Ending the treasure token to sort of maybe keep Wesley off mana, but then he's going shields down for a turn. So this is, I guess at that point, maybe you'd rather Wrath for 0 to get rid of the treasure, use your mana more efficiently. But yeah, a bit of an awkward spot here for Steven. Had, Counterspell, Narset, Teferi, a bunch of good cards, but missing that third land drop is going to be really tough here for Steven.
That Wrath for the Sky is not really good in this matchup, so we've got 2 copies of it in our hands, so we will discard one of them to hand size end of turn. How can I'm spending a weakness here on Wesley's side. I'm like, I could fight through one sort of counter spell here. At least I think I could, but something against it, setting up again, going to generate a second treasure token and play my land. This is interesting,
I like this.
Slow and disciplined.
Well, this is also interesting because Steven is missing land drops, right? If Steven only has 1 counterspell available, Wesley can just say, okay, I'm going to untap. If he plays his land that's 5 plus the 2 treasures, I have access to 7 mana. I can easily fight through 1 counterspell. I present a threat, you counter it, and then I end up just going off and killing you. So that's kind of what is going through Wesley's head here. Now you'll notice there's, we see Mono Red Storm in the title, but there's various Jeskai lands. I believe those are only for sideboard cards. There's 4 Into the Floodmaw and 3 Silences in the sideboard for Wesley. So no non-red cards in the main deck, at least.
His hand doesn't look particularly great either, I must say. It literally just look, I think he's got another 2 land in that hand as well. I do see a Past in Flames, I think, and maybe a couple of ritual effects. Definitely wants to try and find one of the mana reducing cards he's got in the shape of either a Ruby Medallion or maybe even just a Ral itself. Maybe wants to try and find some more like Glimmering Impulses, so he can really start digging through their deck and finding some of the key cards they're going to need to go off, because now we've got Steven is hitting the land drops up to 4 lands now. Can I decide, do I tap out? Do I go down? Do I play a Teferi here? What do I need to do?
Well, what I think he's thinking about doing is actually Wrath of the Skies for 0 with Counterspell up, because Wrath for 0 will blow up 2 treasure tokens on the side of Wesley, severely limiting the mana. And you mentioned Wrath of the Skies, maybe not the greatest card in this matchup. So, it's interesting to see if Steven chooses to go that route, which he doesn't, but maybe, potentially saving it for later. It can, for 4 mana, or, if you have some energy bank left over, it can end up hitting either a Ruby Medallion or a Ral. But yeah, not exactly the card you're looking for in this matchup.
And there's a Ral off the top of the deck. Maybe that's double row. Yeah, double row in hand right now. Giganta, we know, got picked up last turn. Where's like, well, I'm just going to go old school. How about I just add a 5/5 to the battlefield?
I mean, that's a 4-turn clock. Steven's got to answer it at some point.
It's also a bunch of mana if that was ever to come, be relevant in this matchup. Steven's kind of deciding. Maybe he's only got like one counter spell in hand. Do I fire it off on this? This is
He
going to be
does
pressure on.
only he does only have one counter spell. I think the hand was what Wrath of the Skies counter spell, Prismatic Ending, Teferi, Narset, and then I can't remember the last two cards, but something along those lines.
There is a Teferi in hand, so maybe it's a good target for Teferi to bounce to go another card deeper. But again, we have to tap 3 mana for that right now. Steven and Wesley are kind of jockeying for position. When is the right time for Wesley to combo off? Does he even need to get into that point? If this Giganta resolves and we're able to do it, that's a 4-turn clock, as you said.
Yeah, Steven really wants to find land 5 here because then you can go, like you said, Teferi to bounce the Gigantha, buy a little bit of time, cycle, and then have land 5 to hold up that counter spell. But I mean, again, Wesley with 7 mana, and you mentioned the potential double Ral in Wesley's hand. Maybe he doesn't even care about a single counter spell. He can just play Ral, say, okay, counter it. Then I can go play my second Ral, and then just kind of pop off from there.
Is that white card in the middle of Dykman's hand? Is that an orange chant?
It might be.
I
Couldn't quite get a
think
good look at it.
it looks a little bit like it is an orange chant, which would be, again, a great one in this matchup, as we spoke about. That's what Lorian's revealed off the top. We're going to go land cycling on that, make sure we can guarantee hitting some of our land drops because, of course, we stumbled in those earlier turns. The later this game goes, who's it favor?
See, that's tough because Wesley does have a lot of ways to kind of fight through counter spells. We mentioned specifically Past in Flames. That's kind of the big one. There are 4 copies of that in Wesley's deck list. So, if Wesley gets into a fight with counter spells, specifically ones that aren't named Force of Negation, then, there might be a spot where Wesley can just say, okay, well, burn through your counter magic. Then here's Past in Flames. Oh, you have a counter spell. Well, I can just flash it back next turn and kind of go from there. So, I think Wesley, because Dykman doesn't have a very clean way to kind of close out the game. Like as far as we kind of talk about these control decks turning the corner. I get realistically, it's just Solitude, which there are 4 copies, but there's not a ton of ways for Dykman to kind of like close the clock and give Wesley less turns.
In the tank, 4 mana available to him and a lot of free drop spells, but maybe just like, the chant and counter spell is good enough. Does Wesley have enough resources to fire off to kind of start getting these resources out of Dykman's hand to potentially then set up for the turn that he needs? But we're going to start with 2 mana here. It is going to be Wrath of the Skies for 0.
Yeah, so that'll cut Wesley off of a little bit of mana. So now the other thing that's interesting is, with the Orm's Chant in hand, Dykman does feel pretty safe, right? Because if Wesley goes, say, Ral, and then maybe after the Ral plays, I don't know, something like a cantrip, like a glimpse, then Dykman could just respond, Orm's Chant, and then you wouldn't be able to play the cards off glimpse. So I wonder if Dykman's actually thinking about firing off the Orm's Chant now, which would prevent Wesley from playing the spells off of the glimpse. Now, the upside for Wesley is that would give him 3 Scion tokens. So, it's something to consider here for Dykman.
See, counter spell brought to the front of the hand. And here it is getting fired off. Now,
Okay.
with the shields down, do we have enough mana? Remember, we've got land drop for the turn, 2 lands, and a Giganta that can generate mana.
Yeah, you don't even need a land drop for Wesley because the Gigantha can make red. You could just go Ral, then use the Gigantha to play a ritual. And if there's enough rituals and cantrips, Wesley, I mean, this is your opportunity. You've got Steven tapped out. There's no Orm's Chant. The only card you have to worry about is Force of Negation. I mean, that one's kind of hard to play around regardless because Dykman can hold it up the whole game. But there's a chance, depending on Wesley's hand, that we might see some fireworks this turn.
Having a look. 3 Force Negations in the main here for Dykman. So let's have a look.
Yeah, and the thing for Wesley against Force is there's not really a lot of counterplay that he has to it. The only option, the only thing realistically that Wesley can do against Force is wish for Orm's Chant or Silence to prevent Steven from casting spells. But I mean, that's that we're a long ways away from that. So if if Wesley does have the ability to, like, even if it's say just Ral cut like a couple rituals and one cantrip, he probably still has to try and go for it. As we see Ral into ritual, here we go, Will.
And we're off to the races. Every commentator's dream is trying to keep up with Storm players and how quick they move with dice. So Storm count, I think, is at D20 there. So that's going to be 4. I don't know if evens or odds are damage. It looks like that was a point of damage. So we're looking at evens is probably damage, or maybe 4 to 5, 6 being damage.
Yep. So Storm count for 3 mana. Is that a breach in hand?
I see.
No, it can't be breach. There's no breach in the main deck.
I think it's a Past in Flames. I think that might be like a Doctor Who Past in Flames or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I get a little confused with some of these alternate arts.
Oh, mate, don't. it's a nightmare at times. Like, and all they do is keep printing the secret layers, which makes our life a lot harder. So
I know that's
spell,
ritual.
That is ritual confirmed. And it looks like we're happy to flip it. And I think the other card in hand is another Ral, right? So we can Ral.
Yeah.
One of those Storm count is the Ral being cast itself, so it's only going to get the 4 extra counters or 3 extra counters in this instance.
Yeah, interesting. We would decide to flip there because we can't ultimate the Ral quite yet. So I guess maybe the plan is flip this Ral plus, and then use the next Ral to get an even bigger discount, because then you would get double discounted.
Here we go. Here's the past. And now we get access to all the spells that are in our graveyard, as long as...
Is that Past in Flames?
Yes,
well, he's casting spells from the graveyard, so it is.
Yeah, it's the... I think it's a Doctor Who one or a promo one that came out. Chat will let us know.
Sounds about right. So he went from 3 to 5. 5 minus 3 is 1. And then, yep, okay, so this is all working out.
That's another past.
2 more Past in Flames.
Let me just make sure that isn't anything crazy.
And I don't believe Wesley has a way to keep going here. I think we're out of cantrips. Yeah, we have a Past in Flames and a ritual in the graveyard. What he could do is play if there's another Ral in hand, you could play the Ral from hand and then cast a ritual and try to spike and flip the other Ral. Because if you flip, then you can ultimate the new one.
That's why I think this issue is a turn. I was about to say. So yeah, we used it 2 mana to play this. We've still got the Giganta mana up. So Giganta.
The other question is, how many instants and sorceries have we casted for Wesley? I believe, because we're keeping track of the Storm, but are we making sure we're keeping track of the instants and sorceries?
8, and we won the flip, which is exactly enough, right?
He wrote down on paper that he took a damage. I don't think we won the flip.
Oh no!
Past in Flames, we can cast that, so we get 1 more shot at the apple. Is this it? We're gonna flip a coin to see if we're not gonna win the game on the spot, but we're gonna basically flip a coin to see if we're gonna still keep going.
Choose one. Yeah,
I think you have to use one from exile, because remember, those 3 are from. Well, the glimpse puts the cards in the graveyard, so I guess it doesn't matter too much. But this one is 1 less mana.
All right,
here we go. Big flip.
That's a 3 and it's an odd, so I'm pretty sure this is.
Yeah, we're not going to the pen and paper. Here we go. All right, so now Ral is going to look at a whole bunch of cards here, and we're going to see if Wesley can keep going.
So it comes in 10 loyalty. We're going to ultimate it. Top 7 cards.
And only 1 mana floating, but as long as he can hit rituals off of this, he'll still have plenty of mana left over. There's a Manamorphose.
Double Manamorphose.
Okay, 2 Manamorphose. That was
is it top 8? I thought it was top 7.
Reasonable hit. So 2 Manamorphose, a Glimpse, and I think a Reckless Impulse as well. So this is going to get him up to 5 mana. He's going to get the draw 2 off the Manamorphose and exile 5. So he's going to look at 7 cards.
Orange Chant is looking pretty good right now. Over the
I know, right? Yeah, that was tough. I mean, Dykman maybe sensed a little bit of weakness here from Wesley, deciding to go for the counterspell on that Glimpse, but I'm sure if Dykman could take this turn back, maybe he would consider doing that. So a little bit of a risk assessment there, but Wesley kind of just had Wesley's hand was good enough. And now, to be fair, Wesley sort of ran out of gas a little bit and
Yeah. It
did
came
sort
down
of
to
like,
one dice roll.
yeah, this entire game came down to one single coin flip, which depending on your thoughts, maybe is a good thing or a bad thing. But yeah, I don't know. Dykman definitely took a risk there encountering the glimpse, and Wesley is going to make him pay for it.
So we've got 2 mana. Spell counts like 16, 17 now. Loads away of reduced mana. There's a bunch of mana floating, of course, off that Giganta still. But it looks like odds even. So odds, it's going to flip. We get a new one. That's going to come in with a gazillion loyalty.
8 more cards.
I'm about to say probably instantly ultimate. Yeah. Take 8 counters off that. Get another 8 cards. These are still in exile. 1, 2, 3. Oh yeah.
To get just for Wesley's kill condition, there is no grape shot in the main deck, but there is 2 wish to go and find the grape shot in the sideboard.
Go more cards deeper. Spell count 19. Top 2. Top 2. Are we doing this for the camera? Because we don't even need to do it for information at this point.
Well, he's just waiting to find the wish, right? There's the wish right there. That's the first wish he's seen. So,
and I think it seems like cool. Right, you've got me. Like the chances of whiffing in that spot have got to be extremely low to none. So we're going to see Wesley taking that game 1 down, which means we get to look at the sideboards because it is an open deck this tournament for both of our players. So we get to show you all you beautiful people here at home. Starting off on Steven's side. We are down a game. We need to win 2 back-to-back to lock in our top 8 position. What do you like at the sideboard, Doom?
I mean, normally here's where I would probably say that, oh, hey, Dykman has some Ormschant in the sideboard. He can bring those in. But we're kind of already pre-boarded for the Storm matchup with these 4 Ormschants. I'd be interesting to see if Dykman decides to go towards those Isochron Scepters. Because, for maybe our old school players out there, or for people under the age of 40 years old, maybe, or people over the age of 40, maybe you have seen Isochron Scepter Ormschant in the past. So that is, I'm not sure if those are specifically for this matchup. It'll be interesting to see if they will come in. Other than that, the Dovin's vetoes seem pretty good. Just, hard counter, being able to fight over the Past in Flames and things like that. Narset, we kind of talked about a little awkward against Wesley's cantrips because they don't actually draw cards, they exile. So interesting to see if maybe he wants to go towards like Narset Days and doing. Feel like that plan is too slow against Storm.
Yeah.
And you kind of want to just lean on like the vetoes and the scepters and the chants.
Yeah, the problem I feel with the Zorius deck is it's very good at stopping my opponent doing what they're doing, but then they just go off, and if they don't use all their resources, they're just going to go off again the turn after, and you don't have enough resources to stop it. But there are definitely some cards that can come out and in. Let's have a look on the other side for the Storm deck, which plays a lot like the like Khan type lists, ways to go and tutor up different cards. What do you like in this sideboard and why?
Yeah, this is really only a 7-card sideboard when you think about it. The 4 Floodmoss and the 3 Silences. Presumably the other one-ofs are there specifically for wish targets: Brotherhood's End, Relay, Grape Shot, Mind Collapse, Ormschant, Oracle, and Breach. So I kind of like Silence in this matchup, specifically where, Dykman is trying to fight on the stack a lot. Dykman has his own Ormschants, counter spells, Force Negations. We talked about how Wesley doesn't have a ton of counterplay for Force Negation because even if Dykman is tapped out, Wesley always still has to have that in his mind. Silence is a pretty good way to stop that, where you can say, okay, well, you have no mana up, I'm worried about Force, I'll just silence you. And then it's also going to be interesting to see how this dynamic plays out, where, Steven has Ormschant, Wesley has Silence. So if Wesley goes, okay, silence you to try to kill, Dykman Ormschants in response, and it's kind of just a 1-for-1 trade. So it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic shapes out.
Well, we'll see how that does go. But what we can do while the players are still finishing up the shuffling is we can remind everybody what the standings looked like going into this round. Remember, we started with 24 players. We started yesterday. We worked it down 8 rounds of Swiss yesterday. This is the last round of Swiss today, and we will find out who is in that top 8. This was the standings going into it. Trying to break this down is a bit, a bit crazy in math, right? But we do have 2 people already locked in. Theo and Dom did it the easy way. Everyone else is trying to get there here in this last round. What you got any insight in this? Is there any like sort of favorites going on here?
Well, I mean, Theo and Dom, those were probably the one and two. If you asked a lot of people who they didn't want to play against, I'm sure that those names were at the top of the list, and not surprising to see those two as the first players qualified. I mean, Steven Dykman is our 2023 champion. He's trying to run it back here, making his trying to play for top eight. All these players have had a fantastic season. Ellen Bogan, Garrick Alford, our season MVP, Harrison Canfer, May French, Fletcher Johnson, just a who's who of the best of energy.
And maybe people at home also want to take part in this and try and qualify for next year. Well, you're in luck because the dates for next year has already come out. We're going to sort out what the formats are going to be. But talk us through these quickly, Dean.
Yeah, so season 1 of the NRG Series 2025, if you want to have your chance in punching your ticket to next year's NRG Champs, this is the place to do it. February 1st and the 2nd in Chicagoland, May 10th and 11th in Chicagoland as well, the other Chicagoland, March 15th and the 16th in Madison, and June 28th and the 29th. Will, that is the event that we're going to be at, right? But the team event?
Exactly, team event. Norma's going to fly us out there. We're all going to have fun. It's going to be great. I'm now just in disbelief that there's 2 Chicagolands. I didn't even think Chicagoland was a real place. I thought it was like a theme park or something. Let alone that you now just blow my mind that there's 2 of them. What the? Okay, that's it. I don't think I can carry on today. This is shenanigans. You could also just be making this up, and I have no idea.
I mean, I don't live in Chicago, so that's up to them.
Like, to me, in my stupid British head, there's Chicagoland in Chicago, and it's a theme park that's like roller coasters and stuff. But maybe that's just mine, me being stupid. It's definitely me being stupid. Players to finish shuffling it up. Let's get down to that match where we're going to go into game number 2 of round number 12 here at the NRG Invitational. That's called Disneyland. Yeah, I've just got back from Florida about a week ago. I'm fully aware what Disneyland is.
Wait, so there's not a Disneyland in Chicago? I thought there was.
I'm not in this conversation. I have no idea if that's a real question.
So the real question we had to ask Norm is there Nando's in Chicago? Because that's how we can get Will out there.
I would know if there was. I think there's one somewhere on the East Coast. Someone was telling me about at some point. We're getting a big no. No, we need to get Norm to the UK so I can show Norm. It's like my thing. I like to show up. The last person I took was Arcade Post. Anyway, back to the game. It looks like turn 0 effects here. Gemstone Cavern getting rid of that stolen card is going to give Wesley the man advantage, kind of breaking serve, so to speak. So where Dykman maybe have kept a bit of a slower hand, going, oh, I'm on the play. This is going to be great. This Gemstone is really going to kind of change that map for him. As here comes Wesley firing off one of the ways to gain kind of advantage. Now, which one is that? Is that the impulse or is that the resolve? That's resolve, right?
Ren's resolve. Now, to be fair, they do have the exact same text. So
yeah,
but that one's Ren's resolve.
And then end the turn, we're going to go surveilling here for Steven. Steven, of course, needs to win 2 games, which Azorius Control is known. Doesn't really known for its clock of being able to win a game.
Yeah, and as you mentioned here, Wesley, with that Gemstone Caverns allowing the Ren's Resolve to be played on the first turn, although hitting Wish off of Ren's Resolve is maybe not where Wesley wanted to be, because, you can cast that next turn, but what are you even casting off of that? There's no free spells in Wesley's sideboard that he can even wish into after playing a land. So, I guess maybe you could go like Ritual, Wish, and yeah, there's really not much here. So that Wish off of the Ren's Resolve is mostly a brick.
Look at Diamond's hand. A bunch of land, 1 ring, 1 orange chant. And other than that, it doesn't look like there's too much in there. I think it might be also Lorien's Revealed, which in this instance is basically land in the early stages.
Yeah, a couple of Loriens in Dykman's hand, maybe keeping his hand just based on the strength of that Orm's chant. And Wesley looking at, I think, a Glimpse, a Ritual, a Manamorphose, a Past in Flames, and I can't quite tell what that 5th card is. But notably, at least from what I can tell, no cost reducer. That's the big part here.
I'd fire off the Wish here.
Well, the thing is, you're not getting value out of it, but you kind of do need it in the graveyard, or
that's what I mean.
Rather have it in the graveyard, yeah.
Having it in the graveyard, plus it can just go get me a silence. Or, I imagine I've kept one of my sort of effects, maybe my own orange chant or something like that. Because we do have the 1 copy of in the sideboard. So I imagine the silence is coming in the main and the orange chant stays in the board.
Well, remember the wish, you have to play the card that turn. So if Wesley
Oh, do
casts
you?
wish, yeah, the wish just says you may play a card you own from outside the game. So if he casts the wish, he can't
Oh.
play it this turn. But it, notably, just having it in the graveyard is better for the Past in Flames.
I don't know how in all the games of Modern I've played, and you can tell I'm not a Storm player. I genuinely always thought that was just put it into hand because normally they go
Yeah,
in the same turn.
yeah.
Whoa, I'm
Well,
stupid.
when they cast the wish, you're dead, right?
Yeah, that's why I've got it in my head that's just the thing. And I say it, we're going to cast it just so it goes to the graveyard. So in future turns, if we are to cast spells in our graveyard, we've got the option of casting that. Here comes the Lurians revealed. End of turn, going to island cycle.
Tap 3 mana, put wish in my graveyard, pass.
Value.
Not where
Value.
you want to be if you're Wesley, but I mean, again, just would much rather have that in the graveyard with stuff like Past in Flames. And I saw Dykman
Yep.
thumbing through the deck list. You saw that Isochron set. I saw both of them actually.
Also seen a Consigned in Memory coming in as well. Seeing at least 2 copies of them in the list. And we've got the Narset still in there. So
Consigned to Memory is a weird one where you can counter the Storm trigger because it is a triggered ability. The other important thing that Consign does is stop Ruby Medallion. So I think that's mainly what Dykman's boarding it in for, is just a clean 1-for-1 cheap answer to Ruby Medallion. And worst comes to worst, he can maybe buy himself a turn if he can counter a Grape Shot trigger. Although typically what ends up happening is when they're putting the Grape Shot on the stack, they usually have enough resources to get to a second Grape Shot. So you kind of would need the second Consign there.
I think that Surveil left counterspell on top here for Stevens. Decided to draw that, play land, pass the turn. Now let's see if we can bait anything out of Stevens' hand here with this glimpse. And yeah, it's going to be good enough for that counterspell.
I mean, Dykman's having some flashbacks to game one. At least he has the mana up here to prevent himself from dying. And also, different situation. Wesley had more mana in game one. And yeah, as you said, Wesley, no land here. So that's a pretty big pretty big sign here for Dykman.
That's good and bad for Dykman. It is like,
yeah,
okay,
true.
they're missing the land drops. That's great for me. That means the hand's full of spells. With Dykman's kind of getting a little bit flooded, I feel. We're going to go end of turn land cycle, thin the deck a little bit more. Now what's 4 mana in Modern that most people play?
I mean, it could be anything, but this is an interesting spot because so Steven, if he casts the ring this turn, technically, okay, you could say, well, I have protection. The Storm deck can't Grape Shot me. But Wesley's sideboard includes 1 copy of Thassa's Oracle. So Wesley can basically go off, churn through his whole deck, wish for Oracle, and that will be a kill condition through the One Ring. So, Dykman actually noticing and maybe realizing that actually going to not deploy the ring for a turn.
Well, he knows that, remember, because it's open deck list. This whole tournament's been open deck list. End of turn, we're going to get rid of the Surveil land, not Surveil land, the Triome. We're going to cycle it, draw a card, go deeper, turned it into a Doman Veto. There's the Consigned Memory for the turn.
Oh, does he even have a ring?
I'm pretty sure we got a ring in the hand.
I didn't see one. Maybe I'm just missing it. Okay. Well, if he's lining up 4 mana, he probably does.
There it is. Okay. This might be the last time we ever get to say in a commentary booth, the One Ring resolves. Is tapped, drawn for 1/1, temptation counter, force and negation. All the cards coming off the top here for Steven to kind of answer threats from Wesley. Only thing missing now is a win con to get this game over with and take us to a game number 3.
Win condition? Do you think Blue Eye Control plays win conditions? What are we talking about, Will?
This is both of these decks are just not decks that Will plays. These are not fun for me. And turn fetch, small Surveil.
I really wish that I know it's 100% bad and not correct, but I really wish that Steven just showed up with no creatures in the main and 1 copy of Celestial Colonnade. That would have been nice.
I would have also been happy about that. That was back in the day when it was fair. We used to see like all sorts of crazy stuff in the blue-white control decks. I feel like we're going to see Surveil maybe an upkeep orange chant here.
Honestly, you probably don't even need to upkeep it. You can actually just wait for Wesley to cast a couple of spells first. The nice thing about Orbs Chant is you don't really need to fire it off. Okay, well, we are going to fire it off. You could maybe let Wesley go for a little bit, but maybe Dykman just wants to say, okay, well, I don't even want you to cast those Ren's Impulses or Ren's Resolves or Reckless Impulses to get a little bit deeper. And that's basically a time walk.
That's where my head was at. I was like, I just don't want you to set up like if the first spell they cast is like the Medallion or a Row, they've gained advantage, which I haven't stopped. Where just doing it in the upkeep completely stops them out. That's my lane of thinking anyway. Dykman passes the turn back, instantly snaps, tapping the ring, drawing another 2, drawing 3 cards total for the turn so far. Plays land number 6 in the form of a windswept heath and cracks it straight away, dropping down to 16. Life total is not super relevant in this matchup. We getting the basic planes? Yeah,
Beautiful basics here for Steven. You know what those are from?
It's one of the newer sets that had them, isn't it? It's like the old like retro boarded basics.
No, those are Invasion.
Are they?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, I thought they were retro ones. Then the answer to your question is no, I don't know. Orange Chant again in the upkeep. Says sure. See an Orange Chant of his own here.
Yeah,
in the
double
hand.
time walk. Yeah, so it was interesting because Wesley had 3 silence and 1 Orange Chant in the sideboard. I wonder if maybe he just boarded all 4 of those in, thinking he didn't have time to go wish for one of them, and maybe would rather just draw it instead of leaving it in the sideboard. Because there was 3 silence, 1 chance. So interesting to see if maybe all 4 of those came in.
Days Undoing was one of those cards drawn then. Do we have a Narset Days Undoing? Would that even be good here? Is the other question.
Yeah, interesting to see the Days Undoing, because I wasn't sure if maybe Dykman figured that was too slow. But we talked a little bit earlier about win conditions. Maybe that is sort of the primary win condition, is just trying to set up Narset plus Days Undoing, have 7 cards versus your opponent's 0. And, Dykman can also Teferi to bounce the 1 ring, buy a little bit more time that way too.
A lot of options in hand. Obviously, you got to imagine we're just going to hand size at this point. But first off, we're going to tap 3. Now, is this going to be for a Teferi?
Most likely.
Here it comes. Everybody's favorite Planeswalker. Best static ability in Magic. Snooze Fest. It's going to come in.
Tell me how you really feel, Will.
It's just not my style. You know what I mean? There's other games in the world that I could play if I want to just take a turn-based game. Here goes Steven. Just going to play his land. Look, don't worry. I have cast my share of Teferi Time Hours. I'm not going to lie to you as well. I have cast a few as well. It does look fun to be able to do everything I want to do.
Ooh.
But here we go. Up in our turn, we're going to go Orange Chant for 1 white mana. Steven is going to say...
Gotta fight over this. Have to. I mean, you assume that if Wesley is casting Orbs Chant, that he's up to no good. So you got to fight over this if you're Steven, because the rest of your counter spells are no good. But yeah, Dykman still with, I believe, Consign and Force of Negation in hand. He has double force.
Yeah,
plenty of ways to fight here for Steven.
His hand's absolutely stacked, but you'd imagine that to be the case once there's an active 1 ring with 3 counters on it. Sure, that resolves. You can have a row. That's the third spell of the turn.
Yeah, no, I wonder if Wesley's going to try and keep going here. Here's a ritual, so we are going to try and keep going. Now, how many instants for Wesley? This is number 2?
2, correct. Yeah. But there's so the third one was the veto, so there was actually 3 being cast. Here comes the 4th.
Well, Ral only counts the instants and sorceries that you've cast, correct? Not total?
I don't know. I'm going by storm count. You're probably right. Let me have a little click on it. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell during your turn, flip a coin. If you lose a flip, there's 1 damage to you. If you win the flip, you may exile out. If you do, return him to the battlefield, transformed under. I need the other side. How do I flip this? Oh, press that button there. Okay. Enter this battlefield with an additional loyalty counter on him for each instant and sorcery spell you've cast this turn. You're so good at this. You should be like an expert caster or something.
I try. Well, here's my expert analysis. Dykman has found Narset and the game's over.
Okay, cool. 3 mana Planeswalkers are fun, confirmed.
I guess that's not true. There is the 1 ring, but Dykman can also use Teferi to bounce the 1 ring, so... I assume that's where he wants to go this turn. What you can also do some tricksy stuff where you go Teferi uptick and Days Undoing in your opponent's draw step, which means so instead of getting 1 card, they get none because they've already drawn 1 for the turn.
I love it. I want to see it. I'm not happy about it.
Oh, did he discard the... No, he discarded
he exiled it. He exiled Days Undoing to force.
Right to force. No. Okay. Well,
All
never
right, we'll
mind
just
then.
have to deal with the other 15 cards in my hand to try and win the game. Land for turn.
Unbelievable. We have George DeBoer in the chat, and Dykman still does not want to give the crowd the show that we want to see, which is Days Undoing Narset. Unbelievable.
Fin the deck a bit. Go get us have another basic planes.
Now, to be fair, there is a second Days Undoing in the sideboard. If that came in, we still could see it at some point. Just saying.
I love that you're a dreamer. I love it. I'm in every control mage's dream right now. Just so many cards, too many to choose from. 3 mana. We're not playing, are we playing? We haven't activated the first phase. Or maybe we're playing 5 mana.
Could be
Oh,
main phase
Solitude.
Solitude on the Ral.
I forgot there's creatures in this deck.
There are creatures. It doesn't feel like it, but there are creatures, yeah.
There are creatures. And Wesley gets to gain a whole point of life. Teferi ticks
+1.
up.
1
3
life
mana
secured.
untap.
And also, Steven could also maybe go towards that Kahira at some point as well to buff up the Solitude, pad the life total a little bit with that One Ring still going. I mean, even if the One Ring becomes a problem, he can eventually just bounce it with the Teferi anyways.
Yeah. So life total is not where we're at in this game right now. Wesley's got an absolutely uphill battle, though. Does have 4 lands, got a 5th land for the turn if needs be. Does still have a bunch of cards in hand. So if Steven's got literally nothing, there's a chance that this could pan out.
Yeah, and I think if you're Wesley, you really want to find another copy of either Orm, well, not another copy of Ormstrand, but you want to find a Silence. That is kind of the ways that you can try and fight through or get through this wall of counter magic that Stephen has, because every single one of those silences and Orm's Dykman does have to answer. So that's like a guaranteed way that you're at least going to trade for a counterspell. But the weird part is, Dykman doesn't have to fight over a lot of these like metamorphoses and cantrips and stuff. Dykman can just say, okay, I'm going to let you draw a couple cards. I'm going to let you go through a couple cards, and I'm just going to save my force negations specifically for those past in flames. And it almost feels like, your single force negation is getting 3 or 4 or 5 cards because you're trading for a bunch of resources, and that's basically Wesley's entire turn as well.
We'll tell them what we want to do with this Manamorphose on the stack. Remember, it was reduced by 1 because Ra was on the battlefield. This would generate us an extra 2 mana of any color and get us a card deeper. I was going to let the trigger happen. So, would you like to flip this or not before I decide if I want to counter it?
So I think we've only one spell. The interesting thing about flipping is like you want to protect it against potentially another Solitude, but the awkward part is the Solitude can just attack the Ral. So flipping it here, I guess flipping it here, you're assuming that your like Manamorphose is going to get stopped, that you're not going to be able to keep going. That's the reason you would want to flip it, but not sure.
Looks like it's going to resolve. We are getting a card deeper.
And maybe Wesley also feels like his hand has enough juice that he doesn't need the -8 off of the Ral, can maybe just kind of play through it and has enough stuff. But it's really hard to fight through this many counter spells. I think Dykman has potential 3 this turn. I think it was 2 force, 2 consign, I believe.
This is the exact reason I don't play either of these 2 decks. Like, I don't want to be the one having to do all this crazy math like sequencing. I also don't want to be the other one know which card is it I'm meant to counter again. Is this the right one? Wesley's gonna challenge Steven here. Is this enough? Am I happy how it's gone? Maybe I could take down the route to get rid of the Solitude on the other side, and then next turn tick it up and try and go off.
Yeah, really tricky spot here for Wesley. I mean, no matter what, you're not feeling super great. So access to 2 mana, that could be maybe a couple of cantrips. I think Wesley's hand is Glimpse, Ritual, Past in Flames, a land, and then one card I couldn't quite make out. There's the Glimpse. Ooh, interesting. We're not plussing the Ral first. Oh, because the Ral can kill the Solitude.
Yeah.
That's the plan. Okay, I kind of forgot about that. So, yeah, Wesley's plan is just okay, build up a little bit of resources and then use the -2 on the Ral to kill the Solitude and then keep the Ral in play for the following turn.
So many options, but we are gonna looks like fire off a force of negation. Now, do you pay the mana for it now that they're completely tapped out, or do
Hmm.
you ditch a blue card?
Honestly, you probably still pitch here just in case there's something weird that could happen. Where like,
Oh, let it
ooh, I'm not going
resolve.
to counter it. Okay. Yeah, I mean, this isn't a super high value. Well, I'm gonna say that,
Next
but
turn's gonna be fun.
no, no, no. Remember, Glimpse is only this turn, but Wesley still could potentially go land, ritual, Manamorphose, make white silence. But Wesley currently out of mana, none in the pool, no untapped lands. If Wesley goes uptick, Ral, land, ritual, Steven's just going to counterspell it, and that's going to be Wesley's turn. So presumably these are just going to go to the graveyard, and Wesley's going to be up those 3 scions, I think.
That's so that when I said like your next turn was going to, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking that we're going to be able to add the signs to the battlefield,
Right.
which is one going to be a blocker if we need to, if we don't tick down the Ral, but it gives us a load of mana next turn to kind of potentially fight through counter magic, hit Dykman on the back foot. But then there's a lot
Yeah.
of ifs and buts
Well,
in that sequence.
here's the big problem with this line. Now Dykman says, okay, you've upticked the Ral. I'm going to counterspell the Pyretic Ritual. And now the Solitude can threaten to kill the Narset, or excuse me, the
Mm.
Ral, because Dykman can pick up the Kahira. So 3 mana to pick up Kahira, 3 mana to cast. That makes Solitude. Oh, but the Scion can block the Solitude. Right, I forgot about those. Okay,
And
I,
sacrifice the no life is gained.
I had missed the Scions to block the Solitude. That's actually a huge pickup here for Wesley. Then, right.
So this is well, we've got the ability to reset the ring. We are at 6 life over on Steven's side.
Yeah, and that's a very good point you mentioned too. Scion can block Solitude and Sacrifice, so Dykman's not going to gain the life. Now remember, Dykman still
Ah,
has Teferi in play and a second copy of the ring, so is not really worried about the ring staying in play. And I saw a Scepter. I don't know if we have a Chant in hand though.
I don't think we've got a chance. There's a Wrath of Skies though. That would be able to get both these signs off the battlefield. But just so many options here for Steven. Like what do we keep? We've got redundant rings, we've got the redundant Teferis, we've got Narsets.
So I wonder if you're Dykeman, hear me out. You go Wrath for 0 to clear the spawns,
Mhm.
and then you go pick up Kahira, play Kahira, attack Ral, that clears the Ral, gains you 4 life, and then post combat you can go to Fairy to bounce the ring, and then I believe we still have, so that would be 8 total mana. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if he plays a land for turn, he can hold up Consign and Force Negation. I think that might be what Steven thinking about.
So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Yeah, the math checks out for you. You could also just not bounce the ring if you don't want to. If you want to go another 6 cards deeper next turn, because the ring will put us to 1. But
Well,
then
actually,
we'd also gain the life.
yeah, you're going to gain the 4 life this turn, assuming that the Kahira is involved. Okay, we are
Having a judge call here.
taking a look at Glimpse.
But no, okay. Just making sure that the signs happen, I guess.
Yeah, a lot to think about here for Steven. I mean, that's kind of what happens when you tap your 1 artifact and draw 5 extra cards. You do have a lot of options available to you.
I wonder how long's left, like, of the round. Is there any chance we can get an update on that protection?
Yeah,
Because
because I believe
Steven's
we
still got to
are
win
in.
another game.
Yeah, I believe we're in sudden death. So the way that sudden death worked yesterday, and I assume it's the same today, is after time is called, players play 5 turns, and then highest life total at the end of 5 turns wins the match.
That punishes players with the 1 ring. I like it.
True.
Not that I'm biased and hoping for a certain thing to happen tomorrow, but here comes the Wrath, as you said, for 0. This will get the tokens off the battlefield.
Yeah, now the very important thing is, does Dykman prioritize killing the Ral enough to spend 6 mana to pick up the Kahira? Because leaving the Ral on 1 is maybe not the biggest. Yeah, that's probably fine. You can leave the Ral on 1, and it's not like Wesley is threatening a ton. We're tapping 3. Yeah, looks so he's content with just putting the Ral down to 1. And what's nice about that is now the Ral can't minus on the Solitude next turn.
17 minutes left of this round is what I'm being told. Those cards are going to go to the bottom. So we found Orm's Chant, and of course we've got a way to potentially cast that every turn, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have the Scepter in the chant now that we have that lined up. Oh, we're going for it this turn. Oh God, Will, I gotta say my boomer senses are tingling now.
I
Scepter
was not
chant
playing when this was around. I have played with this.
brings
I
me
just
back.
haven't played it. This was around. So talk us through what is actually happening right now. What
It's
happened?
Wesley's conceding the game. So Isochron Scepter is an artifact when you it imprints a spell, or I think it's instant, or it's instant with mana value 2 or less. And basically, you can spend 2 mana to use the scepter to make a copy of that spell. So you can copy Orm's Chant every single turn to make it so your opponent can't ever cast spells for the rest of the game.
Yeah, it's pretty backbreaking if your deck needs to cast a high velocity of spells in that game. And of course, this is in the main. But we are going to go to a game number 3 with all the marbles on the line. The winner of this will be in the top 8. The loser, well, it's not all doom and gloom. They get go in the scrum of who's going to be swaying out to maybe get into his last different little places, maybe 7th or 8th place, because there's a few happening in the background as well. I don't know if we can get some updates of who's winning. In fact, would that not be on our little spreadsheet? Could we find out who's already won? We can find out who's already won.
Ooh.
So it looks like May French was able to win her matchup against Jarek, a nice 2-0. Andrew Ellenberger won 2-1 over Cliff, and Harrison was able to win 2-0. Now, how does that make the top 8 look? I'm looking at you here now because I don't have it in front of me.
So if we can have the standings pulled up real quick, just so I can remember, because I know one of these matches was an X, was already at 7 wins. So if we can,
that's Andrew,
that's
right?
what we're looking at. So,
Andrew's locked.
Right, Grayson. We currently don't have an update yet. Dykman is in our Ellenbogen X and 4. Ellenbogen is a lock for top 8. Wesley and Dykman are still playing. It looks like Grayson actually took a loss to Frederick, so that's going to be there as well. So the only players from these X4s that have currently locked it up is Andrew Ellenbogen, and then the winner of Dykman Wesley, and then everybody else is in the 7-5 kind of scrum here. Now, as far as eliminations, Garrick is out at 6-6. And then I believe Cliff would also be out at 6-6 as well. But let me take a look. Grayson, because Grayson lost, everybody else is still in contention with that tiebreaker scrum.
6 players sweating it out for four slots. Is that how that math's going to work out?
I believe
it is.
so. Yeah, that's so. Tiebreaker is coming down to it.
Okay, right, we're off to the races here. Round number 12 of 12. Top 8 on the line. $35,000 is, of course, the top prize with a Pro Tour invite and an invite to next year's Invitational. And that's how Stephen Dykman got here. Is he going to be able to run it back-to-back? Top 8 and potentially even back-to-back wins here at the NRG Invitational. We're going to find out momentarily as both players off to the stereotypical best start in modern turn 1 Surveil land on both sides.
Yeah, Dykman didn't have to fetch for his, though. He just natty drew it.
Easy. And left it on top just to flex.
Every single time. And yeah, Wesley is, let's take a look here. So Wesley is looking at a hand. I think there's a couple of lands, a Ritual, a Ral. So potentially could deploy the Ral this turn while Steven does not have the counterspell available. See what he decides to go for. Just going to pass. Land and a ship of the turn. What has Dykman got here?
Put the feelers out here. See if we can get another extra 2 cards. Do have counterspell. I see One Ring, Orange Chant, Teferi, the Wrath of the Sky. The fact that Wrath of the Skies is still staying in is maybe we don't have enough cards to cut, and it's just one of the best of a bad bunch to keep in.
Yeah, I also wonder if it's something along the lines of maybe he is just worried about something like a bunch of treasures from the Strike It Rich. Like if treasure, Strike It Rich plus flashback, that can get a couple of treasures. Also, it can like if Wesley does a lot of setup turns that involve Ruby Medallion and Ral, maybe dare I say it, both in play, then it could clean up a couple of those.
Yeah, in the right spot, it could do some real damage. But Wesley's gonna, test the water, bait out a counter spell here, play a land, pass the turn back to Steven, who gets a land for the turn.
Yeah, also interesting to note, there's actually 0 copies of Empty the Warrens in the entire 75 here for Wesley. That's usually a card that these Storm decks kind of go towards as sort of a secondary plan, but Wesley is just all in on the Wish for Grapeshot or Wish for Thassa's Oracle.
And Steven's aware of that, of course. It is open
Yep.
deck list. That's a fetch land off the top here for Wesley. We're going to start off by, again, testing the water, see if we can go 2 cards deeper. And we're doing this before we play our land drop, in case it does resolve and we hit one. There's a Silence. There's a Ruby
Ooh.
Medallion.
Those are some good ones here for Wesley. That silence is going to be pretty good next turn. So the silence is like, so if Wesley has the ability to silence and then still set up a combo, that's going to require Dykman to have a lot of counter magic, which I believe he does. I think there might also be a chant in there. I couldn't quite get a good look.
There is an orange chant in the grip, yeah. I think it's 1 ring to fairy, orange chant, a couple of lands. There might be one other card there. On the Wrath of the Skies.
Yeah, and then Wesley's hand looks like Glimpse, Ral, Ritual Land, I believe.
Fire Islet's going to be the land for the turn.
Wesley considering maybe playing the Ruby Medallion into the counter magic. There's also something to think about where maybe you'd rather go, say, next turn you pass this turn, then next turn you can go Silence, land for turn, and then go Ral and Ruby Medallion. But Will, as you mentioned, Dykman boarding in that Wrath of the Skies, that one definitely could come up here if Wesley does say deploy. If Wesley is to deploy Medallion and Ral and doesn't win the game, that Wrath is going to be backbreaking.
Misty Rainforest, instantly to the graveyard. I imagine this is going to get some mana that can produce white, like a Hallowed Fountain. Here it comes down.
And I'm also very curious to see, so there's, obviously, as we mentioned multiple times, players have access to deck lists. Now, if you're in Wesley's side of things, is something like Wrath of the Skies, is that something you would expect Steven to keep in? Because if you don't expect it, you may not play around it. Now, the other thing that Steven can do is just say, okay, now that you have 2 good cards exiled, I'm just going to chant you on your upkeep, which is effectively, it looks like a 2-for-1, but it really is kind of just a 1-for-1 because you're trading the chant for the Ren's Resolve. So it's a 1-for-1 in terms of card economy. But it is, Wesley's entire turn and doesn't get access to the silence or the medallion.
That might just be enough in that one turn there now. Because now we kind of sad. We've got counter magic in hand. We've got the 1 ring. Can we even take the turn off? That's what's going through Dykman's head right now. 1 counter spell available.
Yeah, this is such a weird spot. Dykman could deploy the 1 ring, but wouldn't have a counterspell available. So yeah, Dykman's just going to go passing. Now, again, as we mentioned this in the previous game for people who were maybe are just tuning in, the reason that Dykman is, not necessarily safe with the 1 ring activation or the 1 ring trigger, rather, excuse me, is because Wesley has a copy of Thassa's Oracle in his sideboard. So that's kind of his way to win the game through a 1 ring protection turn. And silence is a huge pickup.
Okay, so we're slowly putting these tools together, the tools that we're going to need to win this game. And we're going to start right now with that silence. Dykman, don't veto in response. Stop that shenanigans.
Yeah, now the question is for Wesley. Do you want to try and have a fight this turn? Do you want to try and keep going? It looks like we're lining up mana. I think Wesley's going to go for it.
Yeah, Storm Count's going off. Why not? Let's do it. Row's going to come down. That resolves. Have an answer to that in hand with the Solitude pitching the Wrath of the Skies if we want to go that route. Then that would just leave us with the 1 ring. So shields are, I say, semi-down here because Row's still on the battlefield.
Not necessarily, but this is kind of interesting where Wesley can put the route trigger on the stack. Dykman can go Solitude Pitch. If Wesley has another instant, say
Don't
another
think he
ritual,
does.
he can respond. I don't think he does, though.
No, I got to agree with you. I don't think he does at all. That's going to happen. Point in life going to be gained. Solitude's going to go to the graveyard. Flip. Do you want to take this extra point of damage? Yes, you
-1.
will.
Hell yeah. Take a damage.
3
Oh, the
mana.
Teferi in play, right. So Wesley can't actually cast the instant there because of the Teferi, even if he had one.
So Past in Flames. That's another ritual and a Steam Vents. Have we played our land for the turn?
We have not. I don't think we have.
Well, that answers it for us. Play it, shock it in. We got 3 mana floating. We could just play Giganta. Or
No, I
or
think
not.
I'm pretty sure the 3 mana floating was used to play the what do you call it? The
Oh, the
glimpse.
glimpse. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I believe.
Just didn't move the dice. Got you.
That Diane's just kind of chilling over there. But yeah, I mean, this is Dykman's follow up. That Dykman was kind of navigated this game pretty well, was able to make some pretty reasonable trades, and has gotten the game to this point. You know, we got Wesley on a little bit of lower on resources, and has a copy of the One Ring. But this is Wesley's turn. You know,
Yeah.
Dykman's on empty, has no shields currently available, and if Wesley can find, a Past in Flames, a ritual or two, maybe he's good to go.
What's it? It's just Giganta and land in hand. Firing this off just to slow down the mana resources.
Yeah,
Yep,
Dykman
face
is
up.
so worried about dying. All right, here we go. Wesley, this is your turn. Presumably, you want to just pop the Islet end of turn because you probably want access to as much mana, or you don't need 6 mana, but you want to, it's the question
Resources.
of, do you want the ability to use 6 mana, or would you rather have the extra mana next turn? Another land picked up for Wesley.
Let's do this now. Okay, so we found a Reckless Impulse.
That's a good start.
And fire that off now. Looking for some sort of help. Row and Wish.
Those are pretty good. Although, remember, Will, going back to the situation where we didn't pop end of turn, we actually don't have the ability to go Ral into Wish, which I believe we would have if we had 1 extra mana. But I mean, in any case, Ral into Wish doesn't do that much anyways. But a good setup for next turn.
Counterspell was found off the One Ring. Double land counterspell will also have the ability to tick down with the Teferi if needs be, if we want to try and get another card deeper.
Oh, wow. And Wesley, I mean, it's not necessarily getting punished because I think he's right to hold the Ral for another turn. But the fact that Dykman found that counterspell, kind of brutal here for Wesley, because now Dykman can just counter the Ral, and then Wesley doesn't really have anything to do with that Wish.
Is there not? Let's have a look. What's in the sideboard? Let's have a little schnurk. Would Breach change anything?
Okay, so you go Ral, Steven counters it, then Wish. No, you don't have enough mana. Even with a land drop, you can go Wish Breach, but you have no mana left over.
Okay.
I think Wesley picked up a Metamorphose. So you can Metamorphose first to try and find another cost reducer, either a Ral or a Ruby Medallion.
And this is free because, what's the best we're going to do? We're going to have 5 mana. We're going to spend it playing Giganta anyway.
Right.
Land was found, so not what we wanted.
Yeah, Wesley drawing a lot of lands over here.
Yeah, I feel like this ring's like this is we kind of need to go off this turn. That ring is going to draw us Steam so many cards moving forward, and that just might be enough to put the nail in the coffin and take this down.
Let's think about this. So Storm Count, we have Ral, Counterspell, Manamorpho. Storm Count 3. If Wesley found another ritual, he can go Ritual, Storm Count 4, Wish, Storm Count 5. And then I believe he would have enough to Galvanic Relay for 6. That is sort of the way. That's like the best card that he can wish for in terms of just like pure card advantage. But other than that, yeah, only played his land drop, only 2 mana available. Doesn't have, is not doing a ton with Wonderworld Breach. Looking at the sideboard, I mean, there is Grape Shot, I guess, which you could just Grape Shot to take care of the fairy. You could, yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
much it. Yeah, that's what we're doing.
It helps. It means things like silence, etc. off the top is going to be good draws for us. That's a Narset off the top.
Did we get a ring trigger here for Dykman? I don't know if he took 2 damage that turn.
Oh my
I know
god,
he went pretty
we've
quickly.
just drawn Narset and Days Undoing.
Oh, did we?
Yep.
Well, that's pretty good. What's also really brutal about that is that shuffles the graveyard back in. One of Wesley's better top decks was Past in Flames. So yeah, sure, Dykman draws a whole new hand. That's fine. It's even more backbreaking for Wesley because that cuts off one of his possible best top decks.
There is a Past in Flames in the graveyard, right?
I think so.
It's the crazy art one, but here comes Narset. There's the land. I would like to cast Days Undoing and just see Wesley's soul get sucked out of him here.
Brutal.
Saying, oh no, I've got to shuffle my Giganta back into my deck.
Now,
a terrible draw.
Remember, I don't know how much time is left in the round, but sudden death will. We got to talk about it. If we do get the time, the way that sudden death works is that players play five turns, and at the end of turn 5, highest life total wins. Dykman does not have a lot of creatures in his deck and has a copy of the One Ring in play, so I'd be very curious to see how much time is left in the round. You see Dykman playing pretty fast here.
We've got a companion still to grab if needs to be.
We do, yeah.
We're going to get a time spoken our ears momentarily so we can find out. Another land off the top here for Wesley. It's got to love that. We're over on the Steam Fan found Homage Chant and the artifact. 1 minute left, I'm being told, ladies and gentlemen. This might come down to it. That's an impulse off the top here for Wesley.
Will, there's no companion. He picked it up and then shuffled it in his deck.
Oh no. Oh no, I don't even know. Oh my goodness.
Wait a minute. Hold on.
How do we commentate on this? Like, how do I do it? Medallions. Cast medallion. Play a land per turn. Go. We've got to be down to about 40 seconds at this point. Steven's going to untap the One Ring. It's going to potentially draw another 4 cards.
Yeah, I mean,
This is turn 0.
Wow. Well, I think we may be getting down into sudden death, and I think you see Dykman looking, and I wonder if he's maybe asking about the sudden death rules or anything like that. Yeah, this is what it's going to come down to.
Remind me and everyone at home. So sudden death. Do we play the 5 extra turns and then it's sudden death?
Correct. Yeah. So it's 5 turns, and then at the end of 5 turns, the player with the higher life total wins.
My goodness, those 4 extra cards do nothing. Double consign, double land.
Yeah, and I mean, Dykman has it sort of quote unquote locked up with Scepter Champ, but I mean, if we're on turn 0,
can he consign to memory the sudden death trigger? Was it an activated bit? Like, where are we at with that? Okay.
No. You can consign your own ring trigger, the damage trigger, that is. But I mean, Steven already at 11 versus Wesley's 15.
Well, and we're about to lose another 4, so we're going down to 7. So we need to get multiple hits in.
We can consign the 4.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, okay. Which it's still multiple hits though that are needed, as long as Wesley doesn't use that fetch land. Because Solitude, 3 damage a point.
Well, no, because Solitude
would
do it itself, because we go from 11, Wesley would go to 12, we go to 14. So we just need to find a Solitude. So I think what Dykman wants to do here is consign the ring trigger, which he did. So this is going to be turn 1, and then he needs to find a Solitude. Basically this turn. Can Teferi to bounce the ring to get that off the battlefield.
Does have a way of locking Wesley out of the game, but with this top 8 on the line, you have to play to your outs. And right now, if your name is Wesley Hickman, your out is Steven Dykman not finding a Solitude. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. None of them were Solitudes.
Or, I mean, I guess he could also find like a hero that got shuffled back in.
Fair one. That would help as well.
Yeah.
We can untap the ring and draw another 6.
Well, the question is, do we have enough mana to untap the ring, play Solitude, and bounce our ring. I don't think we have enough mana to do all
Not
of that.
bounce it, but we can consign the trigger again in our upkeep, right?
Okay, we could do that.
Well, here comes 3 mana.
I guess you don't have to find the Solitude this turn, right? Because as long as you go to Fairy, bounce the One Ring, stay at 11, you chant Will. Like, Wesley's not going to get to cast another spell this game, right? Because we have multiple chants. So Wesley's locked out of playing spells. It just comes down to, can Dykman find the Solitude? But next turn would be good enough, remember, because Dykman is turn 1, Wesley's 2, then Dykman casts the Solitude on turn 3, Wesley's turn 4, then on the very last turn of the game on turn 5, Dykman could attack with the Solitude, put Wesley to 12, go to 14, and then that'd be good enough.
You've got to imagine he's going to find that with the One Ring on 5. So you can go, even with whatever Wesley does, you can go end of turn, draw another 6, upkeep, draw 7, draw 1 for your turn, consign that, like, this. I don't even know if this is actually mathematically possible unless all of those creatures are on the very bottom of Steven Dykman's deck.
Yeah, that's the only way.
That Sasha Colonnade is looking pretty good right now. Just saying.
Well, and you also mentioned, the Manamo too. So you actually get to go, you have 3 mana, so you can go chant Wesley this turn, on his turn, end of turn to Manamo, untap, draw 6, upkeep, consign the trigger, then tap ring, untap, tap. So you get to look at 6, 7, 13 plus. You get to look at 21 cards to find a Solitude. I mean, you got to imagine he's a lock, right?
Yeah, right. Look, upkeep, Orange Chant, you can't cast spells this turn. You can draw for turn.
Did he kick it?
It was a wish.
Oh, it was on a Scepter. Okay.
Yeah, it's on the Scepter.
So, you can't Manamo there. Okay, so it is.
That's what I was
cards.
thinking was quite weird. I was thinking maybe you've got enough cards, enough resources. There's only so many turns left of this game. Do we really need to do that? Or is he maybe hoping for a concession at some point? Upkeep.
Okay,
Stop
3.
that trigger.
Yeah,
Don't
we have to
lose
keep
5
consigning
life.
this. We cannot lose 5 life.
Now we get to draw for our turn.
More than likely, if this was, if we were under normal circumstances, not sudden death, I think Dykman probably would have let
6
one of
cards.
those happen.
1, 2.
There it is.
Solitude. There we go.
I think that locks it up. I'm pretty sure that locks it up because now you can just, you have it locked up. You go to Fairy, bounce the ring, chant Wesley, play Solitude, turn 5, GG. That's unbelievable. The very last turn, Dykman is going to get that Solitude to attack, and then, go to 14. Wesley goes to 12. Unbelievable.
They're going through. He's like, look, don't make me tap all this. This is what's going to happen. I will play this Solitude. I'll lock you out of the game. You can't cast anything in your upkeep. I'm going to be in this top 8. You've got to go to the sweat, Wesley. Congratulations to Steven Dykman. Back-to-back top 8s here at the NRG Championships. Are we going to see back-to-back winner? Well, we're going to have to find out because we've got a lot more magic to happen. We're going to get Steven Dykman in the booth to have a little interview to try and break down what we just saw there, doing it in control players fashion of using every second of every clock of every turn possible to try and take this game down. I can see him putting the headset on. So we're going to jump straight across to our interview with Steven Dykman. Steven, you're in the booth with Will and Devon. You have given not only yourself a sweat, but us, my friend, using every second possible to take that down and lock up back-to-back top 8. How are you feeling?
Good, man. Modern was definitely my weaker format. So I was happy to. I'm pretty happy with the 2-2. I tested with Garrick actually, so that's where we all pretty much got the list. We were pretty confident that the deck was good into Boros Energy, which is why we brought it to this tournament. I have played against Energy once, and I was one of Theo's. I think he only lost 2 in the entire event. So that was a good matchup for us, I think. But that was a really close one there. There was a lot to figure out at the end of that one. I had to ask if Consign worked on the ring, because I wasn't sure if it did. I thought it did, but so had to check on that one.
It's not one you want to get wrong at any point.
No, definitely not. Yeah.
Not at all. Talk to me about that very, very last game. I mean, what was going through your mind? At what point, did you know about the sudden death rules? At what point did that start going into your head?
Yeah,
what were you thinking about?
I asked about it with maybe about 7 minutes left on the clock. We had about 10 minutes left, a turn or two prior, and when I started to think that the game was probably going to come down to sudden death, or had a chance to come down to sudden death, then I asked about the rules, and it worked the way I thought it did. So. I don't know if stream noticed, but the turn where I was tanking on the Manamo untap the ring was a lot of me doing math on if if I could afford to do that, and like if I found the Solitude and I didn't find Consign. At that point, I hadn't really thought about Consign, but I was kind of thinking about Solitude at that point. And had I drawn a Solitude that turn, Solitude would have been good enough to get me to a higher life total than he would have been at. So yeah, that was kind of what I was thinking about, is how much damage I could take to the ring. And yeah, so
It was really entertaining. Watching that last game, it was really back and forth. There were certain turns where you gave him outs. Basically, like if he had it, you've lost, and you just got to accept it, take it on the chin. But he was able to flood out, wasn't able to get there. There were certain turns that maybe he should have drew the card at the end of turn with Islet. Obviously, we're sitting in the spectator mode, so we kind of could see that. But being able to get away with it and pick up that W now means you're in the top 8, which means the top 8 is going to be a slightly different format. We might play standard, we might play Pioneer, we might play modern. You said modern's not your deck's not your O face. So which one would you prefer to be playing, standard or Pioneer?
Honestly, I think both my decks in the other format. Like I'm happy with all the decks I registered, but I don't know, the standard one. I guess both the standard one and the Pioneer one are kind of off the wall. They're not really decks that people have probably gotten a lot of testing in against. We actually got the standard deck idea from the CFB list from Worlds. Once Foundations came out, we were trying to think about ways to win the green-black mirror, and I suggested, well, what if we started playing up the Beanstalk like CFB did, but then we threw Llanowar Elves and Vivian Reed in our deck, and then once we threw Vivian Reed in our deck, we tried to figure out the most busted things we could do with Vivian Reed, and then that led us to finding Harvester of Misery, which is just like a crazy card with Vivian because it's a 2-mana kill spell when you need a 2-mana kill spell. It's a 5-mana sweeper when you need to trigger your bean, and when you need to find a sweeper against various decks in the format like mono white or blue black. Sometimes against mono red, it's really busted if they're on a heavy mice draw. So that card was like really important. And then so that's kind of how we ended up on the standard. Me and Brickman ended up on the standard list. Some of the other people on our team deviated from that one. But yeah, that's 3 of us ended up on that deck, and I was really happy with that deck. And I was 3-0 and then lost one today, unfortunately, to normal green black, which is honestly pretty surprising because normal green black's usually a really good matchup for us. But he had a pretty good build for the matchup. He had a lot of tears, a lot of duresses, so things could be kind of tricky if he's able to keep the beans off the table. He can kind of keep control, which like most green black lists can't. So yeah, I really like that one, and then the Orzhov list in Pioneer. I've almost 5-0'd 3 leagues with it. I scooped every 4-0 I had with that deck, but I think the deck's really strong. McWinsauce like a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, was experimenting with black white online, and then I was like, okay, this looks kind of cool, and then I made a video for my team, the Swish Gaming. I made a video on our Patreon about the deck. And I 9-0'd my first 9 games, and then pretty much conceded like in the middle of game 2 of my last match. But I was like, yeah, this deck's kind of crazy like a whole month ago, and I was like, I'm pretty sure this is just my champ stack. And then I played like 3 leagues after that, and almost 5-0'd all of them. And I was like, yeah, this deck's pretty cracked, I think. Vanishing Verse is just better than it's like ever been. Vanishing Verse has always been a pretty reasonable card in Pioneer. It's like always been pretty good against decks like mono green. One of my buddies, Raja Solomon, always has really liked Vanishing Verse. He actually played it at the last RC. But it's particularly good right now because Phoenix, obviously it's good against Phoenix for his hitting Phoenixes, but now they play Artist Talent, which is a super hard card for mid-range to typically deal with. But this deck can deal with that. And it also has Portable Hole, which deals with that too. So I have a lot of ways to not lose to Artist Talent, which is very different than other variations of mid-range. And then I also still am just like doing the Demon thing, right? So the Demon thing is always very good against Phoenix, but if they like can't do their talent thing, they kind of just like can never beat you, I don't think.
So it's safe to say that you're pretty confident then going into this top 8 again. You're back-to-back. So you're actually only 3 wins away from running it back and being the first person to get back-to-back championships and all that comes along with it. But Doom's got another question for you.
Sure. I was just going to ask the same thing. Steven, we see 2023 champion. Will we see Steven Dykman 2024 NRG champion?
Oh, I hope so, man. That'd be really cool. I'm not going to sit here and say yes or no. I mean, there are a lot of really good players in the top 8, so we'll see what happens, but I'll definitely try my best. So
on that one, then we're going to let you go. We're going to kind of collect your nerve and get ready for that top 8. So we're going to come back to you. Good luck, buddy.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it, guys.
And as we come back to the booth, 2024 is coming to an end. Doom, me and you have got to come to an end, my friend. This is it. We're going to hand over to the next set of casters. It's been a blast for myself all year commentating with you. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have.
Absolutely. I wouldn't trade it for the world. Thank NRG for giving me the opportunity and being able to do this, on a monthly basis for the most part. And I've been having a blast.
It is an absolute delight to be here watching and commentating on all the games that everybody has. So for me, from Doom, we'll see you in 2025. Before we head out, we're going to say thank you to our sponsors, Omega, for sponsoring the NRG Championships. Of course, we can't do this without the sponsors. We also can't do it without you, chat. If you wasn't watching, it'd just be me and Doom having a conversation about Nando's. But luckily,
True.
you are here for it, so we appreciate it. Thank you, NRG and the team, for the opportunity, and we'll see you all next year, 2023, 25. I can't count. It's been a long day. I'm going to get food. Stay tuned for the top 8. See you around.